So today I will be doing the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or the MBTI. So the MBTI is a personality psychometric test, often presented as a questionnaire and containing 93 sets of questions, which are all based on behavior, interest, and ultimately will be represented by personality type. The MBTI has 4 individual sections, or dichotomies. So dichotomies are 2 opposing options, which means that for each of these 4 dichotomies, there will be 2 opposing preferences that the client will choose from. So these include introversion versus extroversion, sensing versus intuition, thinking versus feeling, and judging versus perception. So the test was first published in 1962 for research only. The test was developed by Isabel Myers and her mother Catherine Briggs, and for a lot of their lives they closely followed the concepts of Carl Jung. So their work and the development of the MBTI is a close representative of the personality-based typology and theories of Carl Jung. The results were originally used to help select personnel within the armed forces, but very quickly it became a popular tool in vocational and rehabilitation counselling settings. So what is this test used for? The test provides insight into personality. It helps people and individuals to understand potential career preferences that they may have. And the most common application of test results is through vocational counselling and assessment. It is often perceived as a beneficial tool for use in assessment because it is able to really help employees to increase their interpersonal relations, their interpersonal skills, and it's also going to help increase teamwork and that cohesive teamwork amongst co-workers. So how is this test administered? The MBTI is a standardized psychometric personality test, and it must be administered by health professionals that are fully qualified in both the use, administration, and thirdly, the interpretation of the MBTI. So being a standardized test, it is essential that administration procedures and guidelines are really carefully followed by the administrator, and this is going to help to reduce the degree of error in the accuracy of the results. So the MBTI is usually administered individually, but it can also be administered in small groups. It can be taken electronically or by hand. There is no time limit, and scoring can also be done electronically or by hand. If it is done electronically on the computer, you're usually using computer software, which is specific to interpretation and scoring. Or if you're doing it by hand, then often there are stencils that are used, which are going to help with that accuracy. And again, it is very important to adhere to the test administration guidelines in order to just minimize the administration error. Another really important part of the administration of this test is that a really, really detailed and comprehensive and understandable feedback should be given and interpretation should be given by a qualified administrator. So the results should really be extensively discussed with the client, and obviously ethically the results should be kept confidential unless otherwise pointed out by the client. When we're looking at reliability, the main dispute that comes up with reliability and the MBTI is the test-retest reliability. Although Myers-Briggs Foundation does state that their retesting comes back with over 75 to 90% similarities. So that means that at least 3 out of the 4 letter combinations will come back the same. And the test-retest reliability is also going to affect the standard error of measurement, or the SEM. So unfortunately for the Myers-Briggs, the SEM for the 4 scales or the 4 dichotomies in the MBTI is really high, which means that reliability is unfortunately low. This is because the dichotomous scoring is really unable to identify any significant differences between the items that are actually being measured. So when we look at the validity of the test, the construct validity of the test is often questioned, specifically when we look at how these results are scored. So should these results be scored dichotomously, where individuals sit on the extremes of a two-letter scale, or should they be scored on a continuum, where individuals sit on varying degrees of this two-letter scale? For example, if I'm measuring introvert or introversion versus extroversion, scores of individuals are most likely going to fall on a normal distribution curve, with only a few people being in the extremes. So two people that produce the exact same letter result are most likely not going to share the exact same level within those dichotomies. Another part of the validity with this test is face validity, and face validity luckily is really, really high. So the items that make up the MBTI are really representative of what the test is actually trying to measure. So high face validity can also be identified where individuals seem to find truth in their scores, and they're also able to easily type other individuals that they may know well based on these MBTI scales or dichotomies. The aim of the Briggs and Myers is basically to develop a personality test or an instrument that is going to be relevant and beneficial to the largest standardized sample. So it can be used on both younger adults and older adults, although it has been suggested that administering the test to young adults or children will most likely not produce an accurate or a true result. And I would say this is because being a young adult or a child, you are still developing your personality type and your preferences, and you probably don't have much of an idea about your career interests either. From a cultural perspective, there are currently 14 different translated versions of this test listed in the manual, and there is great success noted using this test in many different cultures, although reliability is substantially higher when tested within an English-speaking population, or at least when English is the first language. So the MBTI will aim to be inclusive of gender, it aims to be inclusive of culture, and it is appropriate and viable for individuals with disabilities. There are strengths and weaknesses that can be identified. Because it is a questionnaire type psychometric test, it is quick to take, it is very low in cost, and it's going to be relatively easy to interpret and to understand the interpreted results. Another strength of the MBTI also lays in the manual itself. So the manual is a really, really good detailed description and gives a lot of thorough information of the administration guidelines, of the scoring directions, of reliability and validity, of data for the standardized sample. It also gives really thorough information on interpretation of the personality types, and it even provides you with the application and the uses within vocational counselling and educational settings. So there are a lot of professionals out there that will strongly recommend against using the Myers-Briggs type indicator as a tool for career assessment because of that lack of reliability and pure validity, but I believe it is a really valuable tool to particularly encourage active participation from clients, as well as providing a really good opportunity for clients to reflect on their personality, on their perceptions and their interests. Thank you.